Well, guys, good morning. It's actually the 24th for me, Christmas Eve, but you won't be watching this until at least the 26th. And if you didn't know, hopefully you know now that there's no service on the 26th at 2 Mile. Instead, we just wanted to record this brief devotional for you to use at home, either with your family, your friends, or even on your own as a time of reflection. You know, every December, people make lots of well-intentioned resolutions for the new year. And they get this burst of enthusiasm and they make all these promises to themselves, to one another, to spouses, to kids, and to God. And the truth is that a lot of these things are often built out of a false hope and a kind of a false belief in our own power to change. I confess that I'm a skeptic when it comes to resolutions, in large part because I know myself. And I know how often I've failed. And so I've often wrestled with questions like, are these even helpful? Are they oppressive? Is this counter to the gospel, which frees me from a list of checklists? And, you know, shouldn't I aim to live appropriately all year? And so, you know, these are sort of the questions that I've considered, and I doubt I'm the only one. Maybe some of you are so tired of failing that you stopped making resolutions entirely. And so, you know, all that said, we know as followers of Jesus what is right and biblical, and we know that it is good to desire to grow in godliness and personal health and financial freedom and those sorts of things. But the goal of these things is that we might glorify God and that we might faithfully love those around us. And so the glory of God and the good of those around us, we view these as the two guide rails that kind of shape any resolutions we make. Jonathan Edwards, he was a famous Puritan pastor. Maybe you've heard of him, maybe not. Some think he was one of the greatest minds America has ever seen. And when he was just 19 years old, he wrote a list of, I think, 70 resolutions, which are really heavy. And what we should know from this is that by the age of 19, Jonathan Edwards was already aware of the reality of sin crouching at his door to defeat him and to derail him from the glory of God and the good of others. And with this awareness, Jonathan Edwards was determined to live his life for the glory of God as much as he could by the power of the Spirit. And so in his introduction to his resolutions, he wrote this sentence: "Being sensible that I am unable to do anything without God's help, I do humbly entreat him by his grace to enable me to keep these resolutions, as they are agreeable to his will for Christ's sake." First, we see in Jonathan Edwards' introduction is be sensible. Be sensible. He says, being sensible, that I am unable to do anything without God's help. Be sensible. Look, if we hastily and zealously make resolutions out of an illusion of strength, we will most likely fail and be discouraged. Truly, apart from Jesus, we can do nothing. That's what the scriptures say. And so, and if we do accomplish something, we make resolutions, and maybe you're really self-disciplined and determined, and you actually fulfill your goal, the temptation is that then we become self-righteous, and we look down at others and say, man, why can't they be, self-righteous like I am? Or not self-righteous. Why can't they be disciplined like I am? I go to the gym every day, or I manage my finances. And then we develop our own works-based righteousness. We need to be sensible as we make our resolutions, because the better way to make resolutions is from a place of prayer and a place of study of the Word. See, because our desires should line up with the Bible and with the gospel. And so, God's never going to impress upon you a resolution that doesn't somehow benefit the glory of God and the good of those around you. Now, is it good to try to be healthy physically as an example? Yes, I think that we can glorify God by taking care of our bodies, and it also is good for our family members and friends because we can love them well. So we be sensible as we make these resolutions, that they're coming from a place of the scriptures, from a place of prayer, not from this kind of gritty self-determination, which really isn't that honoring to God, which leads us to number 2, the second thing we learn from Edwards' introduction, which is to be dependent. Edwards says, I'm unable to do anything without God's help. See, every resolution must be made in dependence on God. As Americans, we value our independence. We value our ability to get things done. We value our ability to kind of pick ourselves up by our bootstraps, the American dream. But as members of God's kingdom, we must understand that being able to do all things through Christ who strengthens us, Philippians 4:13, actually means that we must depend on his strength continuously in order to do all things and to keep our resolutions. In that context, Paul is talking about how he needs God's strength to be content, whether in plenty or in lack. One of the guys who I was reading on Ligonier, he's put it this way. He said, in truth, whatever doesn't kill us makes us weak by God's comforting grace, so that in our weakness, we will rely continuously on the strength of our Lord. And so we make resolutions from a place of being dependent, realizing that our failure actually gives us more grace. The third thing is this: be humble. Edwards says, I do humbly entreat him by his grace to enable me to keep these resolutions. See, we don't make resolutions with arrogance. That's what the world does. They say, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this. And what does James say? He says, woe to you when you say, I'm going to travel to this city. I'm going to do this. He says, you don't know what your life is. You don't know if you're going to be alive. You're a mist. You're a vapor. And so we don't, kind of put our hand to the plow, get stuff done, and then flaunt our self-discipline before our Creator and his saints, making demands of what we've earned. I do this every day, and therefore no. You gotta be humble. The truth is that any success you have is a gift from the Lord. And had he not given you that grace, you would have failed. But here's the rub. Our failures remind us of our desperation for Jesus. And our successes remind us of his goodness. And that's what we need to remember as we humbly make resolutions. And then the final thing here is this: do all for the sake of Christ, these resolutions. Edwards says, so far as they are agreeable to his will for Christ's sake. In other words, you don't want a resolution to happen that's not glorifying to God and good for his people. See, making resolutions is not just about goal setting so that we can have happier lives. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we are called by God to live according to his will, not according to my will, according to his desires, not my own. I die to myself. I have to die to my desires every day. We live for Christ's sake. He leads us in the right paths for the sake of his name, not my own. By all means, make a goal to be healthy. That's fine. But remember that physical exercise has some value, but godliness has eternal value, 1 Timothy 4:8. By all means, study, learn, but remember that many books can lead to a weary heart, Ecclesiastes 12:12. By all means, strive for holiness, but remember above all that Jesus imparts his holiness to you because of his hard work and his resolution to die on a cross in obedience to the Father. And so all the resolutions that we make, we do these for the sake of Christ, because ultimately, if it's not for Christ, then it's not honoring to Christ. Now, that doesn't just mean you have to go out and witness, though that's good, but realizing that we honor Christ as we do all things unto the Lord. Whether we eat, whether we drink, whether we work, whether we exercise, whatever it is, we do all things unto the Lord as for the Lord, not for men. And so, just to summarize again, be sensible, be dependent, be humble, and do all things for the sake of Christ. Keep these things in your mind as you wrestle through your resolutions as a family, as you pray, as you debrief the previous year, and as you look forward to 2022. And so, guys, have a great new year, and we'll see you soon.